Hi, I'm Bill Parrish. I'm with the Community of Registered Tax Return Preparers, CRTRP.com. I want to talk casually with you for just a few moments about the use of the term Registered Tax Return Preparers, or RTRP. It's a new concept created with the stroke of a pen by the Internal Revenue Service, but there appears to be a great deal of confusion about who can use the title Registered Tax Return Preparers and when they can use that title. And actually the answer lies in IRS publications and in IRS rulings. I want to summarize just real briefly for you my interpretation of what those rules are. Now, as I always say to everyone, remember, I'm not from the Internal Revenue Service. I'm actually here to help you. But here's my interpretation of the use of the term Registered Tax Return Preparer. First of all, today is July 27th, 2011. No one may claim to be or call themselves a registered tax return preparer because no one has qualified to be one yet. To use that term, you must meet certain specific criteria. Number one criteria, you must have registered for a personal tax identification number. A preparer tax identification number, a PTIN, P-T-I-N. Now, most of us have applied for a PTIN or we have renewed our existing PTIN. We probably did so last fall to be in compliance. But we were not issued a full PTIN. We were issued a provisional PTIN. It's provisional upon us doing certain other things. The first other thing we must do is we must take and pass a minimal competency examination. We have until December 31st, 2013 to pass that examination. So that's the first step we must take towards calling ourselves a registered tax return preparer. The number two step, once we have passed that exam, or we can actually take the steps out of order, we must pass a background check. We must go through a fingerprinting process. Those fingerprints will be submitted to the FBI for a background check. They're going to be checking for the last 10 years to see if you and I have been convicted of a felony. If we haven't been, then we're going on. If we have been, then that may not necessarily disqualify us from becoming a registered tax return preparer. Instead, we must provide details about our conviction in the last 10 years of a felon. And then it will be determined if that conviction relates to our profession or relates to our integrity and ability to prepare tax returns. And once that is completed, we must also submit to a background check and a compliance check. That compliance check will check for certain things about our personal and our business tax compliance. Have we filed all of our required tax returns? That's the number one compliance check. Number two, have we paid all the taxes due? Now, if we're under audit right now for some reason, then we have probably paid the tax due. There may be an outcome to that audit that we may not agree with, and we'll have certain rights of appeal also. But once that's completed, then we must either pay that tax, or if we have tax that we cannot pay, whether it's through an audit or from some other source, then if we have entered into an installment agreement, and if we are current with the terms of that installment agreement, then we are to be considered in compliance with the requirements. And once we have gone through all of those steps, the registering for a PTIN, passing the minimal competency examination administered for the Internal Revenue Service, the FBI background check, and finally the tax compliance check, once we've jumped through all of those hoops, exceeded those hurdles, then and then alone, we can call ourselves a registered tax return preparers. Now, there are certain individuals who do not have to pass the exam or go through some other steps. A certified public accountant, an enrolled agent, an attorney will not be required to go through all of those steps. Some of those steps they may have to go through anyway, but not all of those steps. But those individuals will not be permitted to call themselves a registered tax return preparer. Because once again, there are the required 4 steps, and that is the only route to being able to call yourself a registered tax return preparer. So I really think once you stop and think about it, it becomes pretty simple. It's a matter of simply following the guidelines set forth by the Internal Revenue Service. Now, once we are a registered tax return preparer, if we want to advertise that credential, then also there are some rules for us. The main thrust of that rule is that we must issue a statement to the public in any written advertisement or verbal advertisement we may have in media to the fact that the Internal Revenue Service does not and will not endorse any specific tax return preparer. That's pretty simple, that's straightforward. So in a nutshell, these are the steps to becoming a registered tax return preparer. Right now, you and I have a provisional PTIN. That's all we have at this point. We have no greater rights or no title that we didn't have before the process has begun. But I really sincerely hope that once you have taken all these steps, like I'm going to, that you and I will proudly call ourselves a registered tax return preparer. I'm looking forward to that day, and thank you for listening for a few minutes as I share my thoughts with you.